All right. Now I'm even louder. Okay. Yes. On Spectrum Cable in Pasco and Richland, and televised on the city's Facebook page, website, YouTube channel, and GoToWebinar. This and previous council meetings is available on the city's website. Lastly, the public may submit their comments and or questions by contacting the city manager, city clerk, or by asking the Pasco Pasco app. With that, I think we're going to roll on to number 2, which is can we get the roll call?
Yes. Councilmember Barajas.
Present.
Councilmember Blaisdell.
Present.
Councilmember Grimm.
Here.
Councilmember Harpster.
Present.
Councilmember Perales.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Milne.
I am here.
And Mayor Serrano.
Okay, well, Mayor Serrano is online. I know he is sick, so we hope that he's getting better. And yeah, so if we could hear him, we'll.
I am here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now. Thank you.
Okay, sorry. Thank you.
All right, so with that, let's do the Pledge of Allegiance. We could all rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, rolling right along. Number 4 is verbal reports from council members. Anybody do anything last week that they'd like to share with us? We'll start off with Councilman Grimm.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. With lots of staff and other council members, I did attend John Funfar's retirement last week, and that was fun to hear some stories and hear people clowning on him a little bit, as the way it should be. Letting people leave with love is how it should be. So that was really good. And then that evening, I did have our monthly Benton Franklin Transit meeting. Largely uneventful. They did go over the service plans for 2025. How that directly relates to us is mapping some routes, some new routes, subtracting some routes based on levels of service, but also with the new high school opening up this fall, connecting to Sageview High School, and those routes are going to start at the beginning of summer, so as time for people to build patterns, see the buses in their neighborhoods and make all that happen so that they're ready to go in the fall when the school opens. But that's all I have, Mayor Pro Tem. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Councilman Grimm. We got Councilman Harpster.
Yep, I attended John Funfar's going away as well, and one thing I thought was great was seeing former city manager Dave Zabel attend, as well as former deputy city manager Stan Strebel, and I think it's great when people come back to wish others well, and shows the kind of community that's going on here. And then today attended Pasco Chamber of Commerce luncheon with yourself and Mr. Grimm. Heard a talk from Washington Policy Center, who shared some sobering statistics that some of us already knew, but I'll share a couple. Washington State has the least amount of police officers per capita in the entire country, including less than D.C. We are top 5 for highest paid teachers in the country, but bottom 5 of lowest test scores, and ranked as the 46th worst state to do business. And 4 of us up here are business owners. That's unfortunate. Also facing a hold of around $6 billion this session. And so I like the way that she summarized it today. Don't move to Idaho, write your legislators, and get involved. So I thought that was a good takeaway. That's it.
No, it was a very good meeting today. We got Councilman Perales.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Yeah, I actually had a tour of the Apple Center last week with the new GM, Mike McCall. His background is pretty tremendous. He used to work for a couple NHL teams, the Dallas Stars, and he's worked for a couple AAA baseball teams. He just brings a wealth of knowledge. We took a look at a lot of the upgrades they've been doing. So I would ask any of you guys, just reach out to Mike McCall. I'll send you guys his email and phone number. Go take a tour. They're paying stuff. When I was there, they were putting up some brand new TVs in the foyer. They're really doing a lot of good work, and I hadn't taken a tour in a while, and it just looks completely different. As soon as I walked in, it was like, whoa, this is the Apple Center. So they're doing quite big events. They just had the Bechtel end of the year party, kind of Christmas party there, and we went over that. And yeah, no, I'm looking forward to the master plan, which is my biggest takeaway here is that on the 22nd of this month at 5 o'clock at the Happel Center Cascade Room, and I'll send an email. They would like for council members, anyone from the public to show up and see the master plan. It's going to be an open house. You can ask questions, talk with the Johnson Group, McKay Esposito, and other people, county commissioners and the HAPO Advisory Board, and just talk about what you would like the HAPO Center to be. So I'll make sure to plug that in a couple more times, but here in a couple weeks, mark your calendar, 5 o'clock, HAPO Center. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Councilman Perales. We appreciate that, and I'll try to make it to that event as well. Yeah, I also was at the John Funfar. I do miss him. Obviously, that's why we were kind of running a little late today. We were waiting for the music, and it wasn't there, but I'm sure we'll get that sorted out next week. And between COPA meeting, a Parks meeting, also busy as well. I will say that there's a lot going on at Highland Park. They're got, I think it was the concession and the bathroom section delivered. So hopefully we'll see that later on this spring, and I look forward to that. And yeah, just very busy, but yeah. So if there don't see anything else. And Adam, you want
I just wanted to thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I just want to add on to Councilmember Peralez's comments that we're hoping to get a presentation for the City Council at the meeting on the 21st, if it works for their schedule and for your schedule as well. So there will be multiple opportunities to see the rollout of the draft plan and to make comments. But that was one of the things that we were trying to align. So hopefully it'll work out for the 21st also.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. Mayor Serrano, do you have anything that you want to talk about as far as an event you may have gone to last week?
I did not attend anything, but I do want to apologize to Mr. Funfar if he's watching. I know he's departed, but doesn't mean he can't still be interested. I do want to apologize for not making it. I had that on my calendar and somehow it got bumped. But I'll be back in the seat when I'm healthy.
Okay. Well, thank you for saying that. I'm sure hopefully he heard that. Rolling on number 5, says item for discussion with opportunity for public comment. The public may comment on each topic scheduled for discussion up to 2 minutes per person with a total of 8 minutes per item. If opposing sides wish to speak, then both sides receive an equal amount of time to speak for up to 4 minutes each side. So with that, we're going to move on to A, which is ordinance amending PMC Title 25 zoning related to overnight truck habitation. 10 minutes by Jacob Gonzalez, which I'm not seeing him, so
yeah,
I guess.
So unfortunately, Mr. Gonzalez wasn't able to make it this evening, so I'm happy to fill in.
All right, we appreciate that.
All right. Thank you very much, Mayor Pro Tem and council members. Good evening. This evening we are here to continue our conversation regarding the creation of a new ordinance that accommodates and supports trucking and freight operations while balancing and minimizing conflicts with surrounding uses and properties. Part of our goal has always been to apply reasonable standards for the new use and to do our best to ensure neighborhood safety. To recap how we got to this juncture tonight, the city received an inquiry regarding the ability to locate a facility inside the city of Pasco. Ultimately, this led to several discussions with the city's planning commission, which did indeed provide a thoughtful recommendation to the City Council on September 19th. Subsequent to that, the City Council has had multiple workshop discussions on October 28th and I believe December 2nd as well. The primary discussion areas have included location and proximity buffers, site design standards and on-site management, and waste collection, amongst other things. As a result of council direction, staff has provided revisions that include allowing the use in the C3 or the general business district. That's been added. Buffer distance reduced to 500 feet. I-182 overlay district has been added as a prohibited district. Allowance of gravel surfacing on the site. Maximum stay reduced to 48 hours in a 72-hour period. On-site management removed. On-site waste collection and garbage requirements have also been removed, and landscape requirements have been removed. Key recommendations from the Planning Commission included creating a separate new chapter and definition for this use, which didn't previously exist. Allowing the new use to be located in the I-1, I-2, I-3, and C3 zoning districts, and to prohibit the new use within 500 feet of residential or mixed uses, parks and schools, as well as adding the I-182 overlay district in the prohibited section of the code. In addition to city council comments, we've also received public comment, and some of those items include removing the gate setback requirements of, I believe, of 80 feet, remove parking lot dimension requirements, measure distance from residential districts, not buildings, reduce 500-foot buffer to a 250-foot buffer, and also allow for an 8-foot concrete masonry wall as an alternative to other buffer requirements. With that, that's kind of a brief history of what got us to this evening. So if you have any questions for staff, we're here. Thank you very much.
Does any of the council have questions on this issue? We'll start off with Councilman Prowse.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Yeah, I sent a couple comments. I don't know if anyone got them this past weekend. They pretty much were lock in step with what B4 Development was proposing. So that'd be removing the 80-foot setback for vehicle gates, so that it was just a lot more flexibility, and they could work with engineers unless there's some background that maybe perhaps Mr. Raymond can give us as to why we need the 80-foot setback, and if that's really just set in stone by our own code. I also said that the requirement for the parking lot dimensions being 74-foot long seems overly restrictive, and that we should allow more flexibility. And then the buffer zone, I took a drive. What I envision is that this is going to be used mostly kind of in the King City area. Obviously, there's some other places, but I drove around there today, and I don't really see the issue with it being reduced down 250 feet. I drove by the RV park, and right next to it's like a truck mechanic place. I mean, they're turning on trucks already right now, so I don't see obviously that area would be grandfathered in, but I don't see the issue with if someone wanted to build something close to that, with the noise and stuff. I think they're already kind of used to that, live in that area. And I think I kind of noted in my email about perhaps as another mitigation measure, perhaps an installation of an 8-foot CMU wall would, in lieu of that maybe 250 feet buffer, if that would help. So those are my suggestions, and so I guess I'd be looking to the body to add those into the ordinance that's been created so far. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Councilman Prowse. We got Councilman Grimm.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I am mostly in agreement with my fellow council member down there. And I, too, is just curious if maybe Mr. Raymond can help me understand, too. The setback, is that to keep, trucks from just parking on the road till they enter the gate? Am I understanding?
If you're referring to the 80-foot gate setback, that's correct. Yeah. It's so that a semi-truck isn't blocking somebody else's access to their property to or from, and won't just be sitting there staged on the city street.
Okay. No, I appreciate that. The buffer, I guess, Mayor Pro Tem, I'm still on the fence for, 250 would be the minimum, somewhere between there and 500 is reasonable. And as far as the parking stripes go, I honestly don't think it's our really best interest or business just to manage that altogether. It's their parking lot. Let them stripe it how they want is the way, I see it. I don't think we need to micromanage that to that level. And so those are my comments about the three issues. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you, Councilman Grimm. Got Councilman Harpster.
I'm in support of Mr. Prowse and Mr. Grimm's comments, and I think the easier that we can make it on applicants, not just the initiator in B4, but other applicants, I think the better. So long as anything in Mr. Prowse's email isn't inconsistent with our code. And I think he mentioned that as well. The only one I just can't quite picture in my head is the 80-foot setback. Can you help me understand what that looks like practically?
I think that would be almost like an internal lane that's surrounded by the fence. So the truck is able to pull off of the city street while it's waiting for the gate to open.
Okay, that's what I thought. Thanks. That's all.
All right. Thank you, Councilman Harpster. Basically, I'm also in step with stuff that we just talked about, I have no issue with that as well. So I would also basically be in support with Grimm and Paralis. Just my 2 cents on that. I did have a question as far as like, I mean, I know basically, I guess in a nutshell, like what about like when the trucker brings like his little dog, or is there like a green kind of area for the animal, or is that just kind of totally up to them with us not telling them? Because you wouldn't want to get out in a truck and obviously step in something that would be very frustrating. So is there an area kind of like dedicated for a trucker's pet, or?
We originally had started out with some of those amenities considered in the ordinance, but certainly landscape requirements have been removed at this point. So right now, it's really up to the owner and provider of the service or the property to establish that use at this point.
Okay. Okay. With that, I'm not seeing any other lights on. I don't know if Mayor Serrano wants to chime in on this or not, or did you have any questions?
Yeah,
Serrano?
if I can just get clarity, I've heard 3.
Hey, Mayor Serrano, could you
Or
go a little louder? It's hard for everybody at the dais to hear what you're saying.
sorry, is that any better?
Slightly.
I'm trying to find the mic in this
Okay,
thing.
there we are.
Okay, is it this the best way? So what I just want is clarity from what you, Paralis, Grimm, and Harpster have indicated is that you would be in lockstep with the removal of the requirements per Mr. Paralis' email. I've heard some kind of say, yeah, I'm interested in this, I'm interested in that. Certainly, I think the striping, allow them to stripe it as is. I think where I'm unclear, not only is where you sit, but also to the utility, is the 80-foot setback. While it seems quite prescriptive, it also I understand from what Mr. Raymond just said, the purpose is to fundamentally have a queue. I guess, what is our anticipated use, if Mr. Raymond can give us some estimations of that lane? In other words, do we anticipate that we're going to have 4 or 5 trucks lined up at a time, or have we seen any indication of the absolute need for that? Because it does seem like 80 feet is quite significant for a setback.
Thank you, Your Honor. That is a good question. Well, it's really impossible for us to anticipate the kind of traffic we're going to have at any one moment. Really, the idea is that the primary concern is that these trucks don't block the ingress and egress of adjoining properties, that they should not be impacted while a semi is there parked, either opening the gate or kind of scouting out their parking spot. And I can imagine the aggravation that one would feel if they're trying to leave a business or enter into another business, and they have to sit there and wait for that semi to move. So I think that's been our primary concern and the reason for the 80-foot setback.
Okay, then I think my suggestion, to align myself with what you've just said, as well as what Mr. Paralis has requested, maybe there's an opportunity to have a little bit more of, maybe not have the full setback, but have some sort of, prohibition on blocking driveways, or at least giving both the applicant and staff the ability to designate the proper amounts of that type of right-of-way. In other words, if you're 400 feet from the closest, residential or commercial business, maybe 80 feet's okay and it works, but I don't have. I guess maybe I said that backwards. If you're closer to businesses, you may need that full offset. But if you're further away, maybe you don't need that full offset. Again, I don't know if we can get that into a code without making it too mushy, if you will. Anyway, that's my thought. Maybe we're a little too prescriptive, but we maybe want some leeway.
Mayor Pro Tem,
Yes.
if I could, I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page here. And if we're looking at the provision that we're talking about with regard to the 80-foot setback, it appears to be related to the gate only. And I think there may be some confusion about the gate versus the fence setback. So the fence, it looks like, I guess we're on 25-163-040, 7, paren A. The site shall have an access gate that automatically closes after each vehicle. The pedestrians shall not be able to access the site under, over, or around the closed gate. Vehicle gates shall be set back a minimum of 80 feet from the travel lane of the public road and access to the site. And then it talks about below that, site shall have a perimeter fence. When overnight trucking accessory use perimeter fencing shall encompass area. So is that your understanding as well, Mr. Raymond? I just don't want to get out of school here, but I just think there's a distinction between the gates.
That's correct. And so our anticipation would be that they would create a lane. Not so much that the entire frontage of the property would be set back 80 feet, rather the driveway, if you will, or the lane leading to the gate itself would be 80 feet back, which, the average length of the average truck and trailer is about 72 feet. So 80 feet is really only going to provide for one truck to be stopped while the gate is opening.
All right. Well, thank you for that clarification. I know that puts me more at ease on that. So, any other discussion? I guess we have Councilman Perales.
Yeah, no, I was just going to add that. That was my understanding. I appreciate the illustration. I just don't feel like we need to really regulate that. I think, if anything, perhaps have a proposed development have like a area where there's like a queue where they drive in and then they sit there. I mean, they get off and they go to the office or what have you. I mean, I think a lot of places that I saw today, I mean, they don't really have that setback like that. And there's trucking, places where people park their rigs out there at King City. And I'm using King City as the example. I mean, I don't even know how far the setback was, but it wasn't 80 feet. And so I just don't there's not even 80 feet for the RV park. So that, to me, again, I would think the office would be probably somewhere on site, maybe not right immediately at the front where I guess the gate access is, but that'd just be my understanding. I just don't see the reasoning to have an 80-foot lane, I guess, from that street to the gate. It just seems unnecessary. So.
All right. We got Councilman Grimm.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. And yes, I agree with Councilman Perales. I guess the one thing I'm still hung up on is I agree. I drive down Commercial Ave and all that, and you're right. I think the majority of the gates are right at the property line. I guess where I'm hung up at is just how busy the street's going to be, as it continues to get developed and everything. And are we, I think as Mr. Raymond said, going to be staging trucks on the street rather than, having them pulling off the right of way and then, fumbling with the gate if it's their first time at the location. And, maybe if, I don't know, they don't know the code or get hung up there at the gate, how long is that truck then sitting in the right of way, I guess is my only concern. I mean, if this is, kind of an isolated area where there's not a lot of through traffic, probably not a big deal, but, depending on the busyness of the road, it could lead to, even potentially some safety issues, so.
All right. Do we have any other discussion on this? Councilman Harpster.
I'll add my 2 cents. I agree with what Mr. Grimm said. That I think the 80-foot setback is necessary, and I just think about different in that specific area of Pasco. Driving down Commercial Avenue, starting with the onion storage sheds and then Simplot and so on. There's not necessarily a specified, a specific rule that specifies that a gate must be 80 foot back, but there is room for trucks to pull in. And so if the applicant or owner of any of these future projects wasn't or didn't have enough room to do that, then I would want to have a requirement to ensure that they made sure that trucks could pull off the street, not back up traffic and I don't think we're going to have 4 or 5 semis pulling up at the same time, but in case there was some kind of a couple coming out at the same time, I just think it would be helpful and would make traffic in that area easier to deal with.
All right. Does that give some direction as far as where the council sits on this? Or
I would like to clarify what the consensus, if you will, of the council is. Are we eliminating the 80-foot setback or are we not? From the proposed ordinance.
I guess, Mayor Pro Tem, just for the record, I am for keeping the 80-foot setback. I am for eliminating any striping requirements, and I am for, I guess, just to land somewhere in the middle, 300-foot buffer. That's where I'm at. Thank you.
okay. You want to go down the list or Do you want to?
Sure, I can
Chime
give
in.
my 2 cents.
All right, I appreciate that.
We do absolutely need to keep the buffer, the 80-foot buffer. That's definite. I disagree with the 250-foot buffer. I would have left it at 500. That's just my 2 cents. But we can move forward on the 80-foot buffer.
Archer, do you want
Ditto.
to? Okay.
I'm with
Blaisdell.
them.
And Perales.
Yeah, I'll go along with, I guess, all the other changes and then keeping in place the 80-foot buffer.
Okay, I'm forward with the.
I appreciate the clarity. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you. Is there anybody?
Yeah.
So I think we're done.
Mayor Pro Tem, I apologize, I might be slow. I just want to be 100% sure since, the applicant is anxious to get this going.
Okay.
So next ordinance we bring to you, I want it to be what you're envisioning. So we're talking about 250 feet buffer, is that for between residences and this use? So 250 feet?
We found 250 or 300?
My suggestion is
500.
500 buffer.
I'm sorry?
My suggestion is 500 buffer.
I'm still with 300.
What do you get?
250. Sorry.
Blaisdell.
I don't know. I can't make that I don't have enough knowledge to make that educated decision.
Perales.
I'd be okay with 300, but
Okay.
I'd want 250. So
I'd be with 300.
And I'm good with 250.
Okay.
250.
250 or 300 is fine with me.
250 it is.
And then and keep the 850 feet from the buffer for the gate.
80.
Sorry, 80.
Yes.
I'm adding to the complication. And remove the striping.
Remove the
Okay.
striping, correct.
Thank you.
Okay. So with that, is there anybody in the audience that would like to tell us what they think? Going once, going twice. Okay. Guess we'll move on to B, which is Resolution Northwest Code Professionals. Yes. Northwest Code Professionals Personal Services Agreement for Plan Review and Inspection Services. And we also got Richard Siddell.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Deputy Community and Economic Development Director Craig Raymond will be taking this presentation.
Thank you very much. And this evening we're bringing forward a discussion related to an agreement we're requesting that the City Council approve and related to building plan review and inspection services. We thought it was a good time to brief the council on what this is all about, why we do what we do, and how we might adapt to our changing budget realities. The city has had a long-standing relationship with Northwest Code Professionals, and they were formerly known as the Building Department, Inc. Their primary areas of service to the community has been through building code plan review, leading to permit issuance, and then also inspecting those facilities and buildings after the permit has been issued. In late 2024, Northwest Code requested a modest adjustment to our long-standing agreement, and in recognition of a reasonable request to update a long-standing agreement, it was also clear that it would be beneficial to undergo a new RFP process to ensure that the city received the best possible value for the permit holders. So the city published an RFP in October. The review committee met and provided a recommendation in November based on the qualified proposals, and that was all based on experience and qualifications, understanding and approach, of course, fees, and also the execution of the response itself. Ultimately, Northwest Code Professionals was selected to be recommended to the City Council. So this is kind of an interesting slide, and it's a little bit hard to point out from here, but what this will show you is that there's several months where the primary activity is actually building inspection activities, but then you have some really significant jumps in other months for plan review activities. And this typically coincides with very specific and very large projects, particularly on the plan review side of things. Another thing that really is something to think about is these projects can have a pretty huge both revenue and expense impact in one particular month. But because they're a very large project, they may actually, particularly if they're permitted towards the end of a fiscal year, those projects can have an expenditure impact for the next, sometimes even 2 fiscal years as that building is constructed. Say, for example, a Dairy Gold or a high school project might be good examples of how that could be possible. So there might be a spike in revenue and expense at one moment, but then it'll continue to have expenditure or expense impacts well into the future. So why do we use these services? As you can see, and as you know, we have a pretty large fluctuation of demand just based on development activities. The larger projects can have a pretty significant impact on staff's ability to continue to, issue permits on a timely basis, because one plan review can take a very long time, kind of backlogging the easier, quicker permits as you go forward. So it's really valuable for us to have a consultant on board that we can send plan reviews to in order to keep those other projects moving forward and issuing those permits. Of course, we always, there's no particular cap, there's no not to exceed on this agreement because of those large projects and those significant swings in development activity. But we're always going to maintain, our eyes on the overall budget. The cool thing about these agreements, especially on the plan review side of things, we will issue a permit, we'll have the building permit fee, and we'll have the plan review fee. Our consultants will only take a portion of that plan review fee for their plan review fee. So there's always a positive cash flow related to plan review in those instances. Of course, we always monitor ongoing budget situations. So it's really difficult to explain everything that we do related to inspections for our buildings that are constructed here in the city limits. Just the code books will fill this desk and Darcy's desk. So it's impossible to put it all on one slide. But basically, we do a tremendous amount of structural inspections, and that's all the way from foundations to structural members like either wood or steel beams or columns, concrete and masonry as well, plumbing and mechanical systems, framing, whether they be steel framing, wood framing, exterior, interior, structural and non-structural. And of course, there's always a lot of fire and life safety implications throughout the project, whether it be firewalls or occupancy separations and egress components for that building. And it all varies based on the type of building, whether it's commercial or industrial or residential, and the type of use as well. Sometimes we'll even get into specialty inspections, whether it's like basement weatherproofing or factory assembled structures. That's what the FAS stands for, factory assembled structures, marriage lines, footings, tie downs, things of that nature. We don't tend to inspect the entire structure, but there's certain elements that we do. And of course, then we get into final inspections once it's completed and issued the certificate of occupancy. So I know there's been a lot of questions as to, can we eliminate certain things from our process to make it more streamlined or easier for people? And certainly there are things that we've identified that we could probably get by without requiring permits or inspections for. Of course, there's always a consequence. Some of it would be, permit fee revenue might be impacted, but also some oversight and control of how things are constructed obviously would be impacted as well. But some of the items include, we could eliminate fence permits or inspections if they're under 6 feet tall. When you get much over 7 feet, you're creating a giant sail. that has structural implications to the surrounding area. Sheds, garden sheds, as long as they're not habitable structures under 200 square feet, unless they're within 3 feet of a property line. Part of the reason why that's important, not just from a zoning standpoint, once you start getting closer than 3 feet to a property line, then you start getting into firewall considerations from the building and fire codes. Decks under 200 square feet, as long as they're not more than 30 inches above grade, and residential re-roofs is something that we potentially could eliminate, and also even residential re-siding projects we could eliminate from the permit process as well. So there's also been other questions of items could we live without doing, and our recommendation is there are certain things we should not eliminate. One of those is water heaters, and there's a lot of reasons why we inspect water heaters. If you want to watch something really cool, go on YouTube and search up Mythbusters and the work that they did regarding water heater missiles. It's really kind of interesting, but the potential for extreme damage is very, very real, and you'll get to see that. It's kind of fun to watch in a semi-controlled environment. There's also a lot of natural gas, so we're concerned about natural gas leaks, and we don't like it when things go boom. We try to eliminate that as much as we can. And most prevalent is the carbon monoxide poisoning potential for the venting and exhaust of water heaters. So we want to make sure and get water heaters done correctly. Mechanical systems, we really emphasize those for some of the same reasons, for venting reasons, for safety reasons. Obviously, there's a lot of financial considerations to properly installed systems, and along with the energy code as well. Propane tanks, again, going back to those things that go boom. We definitely need to inspect not only the tanks, but also the lines serving the tanks so that there's no leaks in those lines. And we have to maintain certain distances from tanks to buildings or property lines, depending on their size. Solar panels is really an interesting one. We already limit what our department will inspect to a certain extent, and we will focus primarily on the structural aspects and the mechanical attachment aspects of that installation. Is that roof designed to carry the additional load of the solar panels? Most roofs, unless they intentionally do so, will not be designed that way. Another thing that's really critical that we won't inspect, but the Department of Labor and Industries will, is the shutoffs for the solar system. So in the event of an emergency services, first responders will show up, and they need to know how and where to shut off the property. If there's more than one source of power from the grid, in other words, a solar system, they need to know how to shut that off and where to shut it off at. So we don't inspect that portion. Labor and Industries does the electrical inspections here in the city limits, but that is one way where the solar panels is really critical in order to be inspected. So those are just a few of the items that we just really don't suggest getting rid of, and we just feel there's good reasons to not eliminate that. And I am here for any questions regarding the RFP or the contract or our inspection process.
All right, well, thank you. Well, it looks like we do have a question from Councilman Grimm.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. No, thank you, Mr. Raymond. Appreciate that, because these have come up as far as some of the people we're having doing the inspecting and the reasons and everything. So just for the sake of clarification, I appreciate the due diligence here at the bottom. These last four you listed: HVAC, water heaters, propane, solar panels, etc. Those you have required by, so we couldn't even eliminate those if we wanted to, because Washington State has inspection standards. Is that just to make sure? Okay.
Yeah, the Washington State has adopted the codes, which has inspection standards.
Perfect. Thank you. And then I guess I also appreciate staff's work and the potential cost reduction changes in inspections that we could eliminate. And Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I would be all four of those. Thank you.
Thank you. And we got Councilman Perales.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. So, Director Raymond, you're not asking us to decide on those kind of items you talked about, eliminating like the fence and tonight. You're just kind of putting it out there for us to.
We're just going to put it out there for discussion and get your feedback on what your views are on that. And certainly we can propose either programmatic changes or if we need to, ordinance changes as well.
Yeah, I would like to kind of look into, I don't know, there's about 10 items in the International Building Code that don't require permitting according to the code. A couple of those were on there. I would like maybe for us to look at some of those and if that could apply to also reducing the workload. Just kind of thought if you're asking us to look at those, I wouldn't mind looking at a couple other ones.
Sure.
To be honest, it would be more in line with the International Building Code. No, my other comment was I did ask for the other firms that were looked at, and Northwest Code Professionals is a reputable firm. I've worked alongside them on projects far and wide, to be honest, between here, Idaho, and stuff. And Jack Applegate is a pillar in the building code community, and they do a really good job. And I know they've been doing work for the city for quite some time. So yeah, no, they are pretty much the best firm really for this type of work. And I'm glad to kind of see them. And again, they've done a lot of plan review for the city already. So I'm glad to see them help out the city. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Harpster.
Thanks. I'll just add that I think this is a great way to do plan review. As Mr. Raymond mentioned, if we had more plan reviewers on staff, there'd be a lot of times where they're sitting around doing nothing. Then there'd be times where a project like Dairy Gold gets submitted, and the staff that we would potentially have wouldn't be able to get it done in a timely fashion anyways. And so I think when we can outsource hourly based work like this, it's a good opportunity to take advantage of. And then, like Councilmember Grimm mentioned, I'd definitely be in favor of eliminating any inspections that we could, such as ones that were mentioned. So that's my take on that. Thanks.
All right, and we got Mayor Serrano. Did you have any thoughts on this topic?
No, I think I will echo a little bit of what Mr. Perales said. Aside from what's being requested here, if there are opportunities to look at where our code may require permits, where permits are not necessarily required by federal or international or state code, I'd certainly be happy to shrink that responsibility. But, aside from this, looks like these folks have done good work for us, so I have no issues here.
All right. Well, thank you for that. I'm also for what you propose, taking those out as well. That's my 2 cents. So, with that, do we have any members of the audience that would like to make a comment on this issue? Oh, I'm sorry.
No, you're okay. I just would ask if you have some other areas you'd like us to evaluate, that you have specific areas, we can, if you could email those to us, and then we can go ahead and try to put that list together and bring it back in a similar fashion so the conversation can continue and we can hopefully remove some of the things that you're looking to get removed from the code. Thank you.
Okay. So it sounds like we have a plan moving forward on that. Anybody in the audience that would like to? Don't look like so. So with that, I think I'll move on to number C, resolution bid award for Broadmoor area tax increment financing improvements, Sandifer Parkway, Broadmoor Boulevard intersection improvements project, and we got basically Maria Serra.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and council members. We are presenting to you a bid award to Tapani Inc. And this is the project that is named Sandifer Parkway Broadmoor intersection improvements, but we're going to take a look at the scope. It's much bigger than just that. So the scope of this project expands from Buckingham Drive to the current exit of Harris on Broadmoor, and it includes the widening of Broadmoor, the intersection improvements at Sandifer and Broadmoor, and then of course some improvements at Buckingham intersection. There's some lane configuration, of course the widening, sidewalks, a pathway, and signals, and then some access management throughout that new wider corridor. These are pictures of the current condition, which you are familiar with, I'm sure. And we will talk about construction notices, but let me skip to the... Oh, right there. So the engineer's estimate for this project was just under $6.5 million. There was very competitive bid climate for this project. There were 8 bids. The lowest responsive bid was from Tapani Inc. from Richland, and it is for just under $4.3 million. This bid was reviewed. There were no irregularities, and so the project is budgeted for, of course, in excess of this amount, and brought more tax increment financing funds could be the ones that we would use to fund this project. Now, with this being clear, this is the action for item. We like to share with you what is our outreach plan for this project. So before the project will commence, there will be reader boards that will provide information to people that use that corridor typically. There will be notices to both the utilities and service providers in that area, including service providers that are not City of Pasco, and coordination with property owners, of course, transit, garbage service, and the school district. We have already had a lot of coordination during design with the school district, and all interruptions to traffic will require, of course, 2 days minimum notice, as well as any traffic revisions, so detours or changes in lanes and other things are also regularly provided by the contractor to the city for review and approval, and that requires a 1-week period so that we have enough time to communicate that through via different channels. As I mentioned, we have already coordinated quite a bit with Pasco School District, since they have a facility right on the corridor within the extent of this project, and we are working on our social media campaign, traditional media outreach, and postcards for those that are in the vicinity of the project, so that they're all aware of the disturbances during construction, and then the ultimate configuration of those intersections and the corridor itself. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions related to this bid award.
All right. Do we have any council members that have a question? We're going to start off again with Councilman Grimm.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Thank you, Director Sarah. Just, I guess, a couple questions. One, what is the proximity for timing in relation? I just think about, just 1 block away, we're still waiting for a stoplight to get put in there. Is there some overlap in this construction, or could you speak to the timing of this a little bit, please?
Yes. So we anticipate, if this project is awarded next week, there is at least a 2-week period in which we do a lot of paperwork and sign contracts and so on. And then there is a coordination period in which we prepare for that communication with utilities and have a pre-construction meeting. So we anticipate that construction will not be visible any sooner than a month from next week, although the schedule is typically managed through the contractor, and there is a cost to change the schedule and the order in which the contractor plans to do work. So we allow them to provide a schedule, and we review if it's compliant with our plans and specifications. We allow for that to occur to be the most efficient in the work. We anticipate some overlap, but that's why those coordination meetings are so important when we have projects that are adjacent.
Perfect, thank you. And just to remind me, when was the stoplight going in up there at Burns, and when were we looking to have that completed again?
I don't remember a specific date, so I will come back. I will come back with that information, but I know that most of the work is complete, and so we're just expecting the light to appear,
Okay.
to show up.
Perfect, and I appreciate the bid coming significantly under the engineer's estimate, and I'm sure the negative change orders you'll have will bring it under budget too. So thank you for your continued work. Appreciate it. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Councilman Grimm. Do we have anybody else that would like to comment on this? Mayor Serrano, do you have any questions? Or
I do not have any further comments. Thank you.
all right, well, thank you. Do we have any members of the audience that would like to talk about this as well? Not seeing any, so thank you for that. So we're going to move on to item D, which is a resolution project acceptance of Burns Road restriping project. And again, Maria Sarah.
Good evening again. This is an acceptance of work performed by a contractor. The contractor is Pavement Surface Control. This project, oh, I'm touching the wrong button. Yes, that happens. Okay, Burns Road restriping was work performed along Burns Road between Road 100 and Road 68, which allowed for the reconfiguration of the lanes. We're seeing the pictures of the completed work. This work addressed inconsistencies in the striping that were a result of development that happened, kind of patchwork, as well as, and this ties to some discussion you had earlier, stacking of vehicles in the right-of-way. So the school district during pickup hours had vehicles, so parents, not the school district itself, but parents doing pickup in that school were actually queuing in the right of way in a through lane. And so in order to accommodate that demand, we were able to restripe the road, providing a parking lane, which made it much safer for both the traveling public and those that were queuing in the right of way. And so this project was estimated at $236,000. The bid award was much lower at $95,000. It had some minor change orders during the work, but at the time of reconciliation, there were some negative change orders because there were some materials that were ultimately not utilized, ending in a total cost of just around the bid award, right? $95,000 you're seeing in the screen. So this project was funded with local funds, it was streets funds, and it was a big effort for that fund to be able to accomplish this, but it does increase safety. So anyways, we appreciate your consideration of accepting the work of the contractors in order to release any bonds and retainage that allows them to continue to do work. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you for that report. Do we have anybody that has any questions? Not seeing any. So I assume we'll go on to anybody in the audience that would like to comment on this. Not seeing any on that either. So thank you for that. So we're going to move on to item E, which is resolution, project acceptance of Oregon Avenue Overlay Project. Again, it's Maria Sarah.
Good evening again. Another project acceptance. In this case, it is for the work in Oregon Avenue Overlay. This is a federally funded project through pavement preservation projects through the federal government, Department of Transportation. You're seeing pictures of the completed work. If you've driven in Oregon Avenue, it rides very smooth now, not so much before. And so we're very glad that this project got awarded funds and we were able to perform the work. The contractor that performed the work is Central Washington Asphalt. This project was estimated at $2.7 million. The bid was just above $2.5 million. We had no change orders, and actually some of the bid items were not utilized fully, so we have a deductive change order at the time of closing of the project and reconciliation, which drove the overall contract price to $2.375. And with that, we appreciate your consideration to accept the work of the contractor. Thank you.
All right. Well, with that, we do appreciate it. Like that, all these are coming under with the engineer estimates. So we have Councilman Grimm would like to have a question or comment.
Just, a comment, just to chime in on what you just said, Mayor Pro Tem, is we ask a lot of questions sometimes when these change orders put us over budget. And I think we need to celebrate, that's 2 in a row that come under budget. So really appreciate the stewardship of the taxpayer dollars. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Much appreciated. Any other comments? Not seeing any. So I guess we'll go to the audience. Do we have any comments or questions on this? Not seeing any there. Since I'm not hearing from Serrano, I assume we're good. So on that, we'll move on to F, which is resolution change order number 12 for the West Pasco Water Treatment Plant Phase 2. And again, we're hopefully going to finish this off with Maria Sarah and take it away.
Good evening again. This is the last one, and this is one of those that may not be as well received as the under budget projects. This is the change order for West Pasco Phase 2. This is our water treatment plant on the west side of town. This is change order number 12. So there's been some other change orders prior, and this change order is for $170,000, and it's a combination of items, and I will go ahead and explain what those are real quick. We have, there's four major items in this change order. The first one is field verification of the location of some infrastructure that was built in the intake facility for this pump station. We had some discrepancies in our as-builts, so the contractor is being asked to field locate some of that infrastructure to then be able to install some seismic restraints. So we are compensating the contractor for that work of field locating the items. The clear well overflow air gap is non-compliant, so while we are in construction, it's a good idea to retrofit, and it's required, actually more than a good idea, to retrofit our infrastructure to prevent any pollution of treated water. We are performing the connection of a generator that was installed temporarily, and now we're making it a permanent connection so that we have reliant service at that facility. And finally, we are compensating the contractor for dewatering of the wet well to perform some work that is a constrained space and beyond the capacity of our staff. We thought we would be able to handle it on our own and therefore not had it in the contract, but we have come to the realization that it's beyond our means to do so. So we have negotiated the price for this change order with the contractor, and should you approve this change order next week, we will be able to provide the go-ahead for them. And I will advance the slides. There were some other pictures of the project and the location, and then the change order amount. This is a $11 million project. The engineer's estimate for the project is $13 million. So even though we had a series of change orders, some small, some bigger, we are still well below the original intended cost for the project. And this project is funded mostly through a low-interest loan from Department of Health. And this could be approved by the OH. We have approval from the OH to incorporate this change order into the loan cost. Thank you.
All right. Well, with that, do we have any questions or comments by the council? Not seeing none so far, and not hearing Mayor Serrano. So,
Nothing from me.
all right.
Nothing here.
Well, thank you. So last one. Do we have anybody from the audience? See a lot of people shaking their heads. So, I think we're good to put that on the agenda. So with that, we're going to move on to item 6, miscellaneous council discussion. Anybody have anything they'd like to talk? We'll start off with Adam Lincoln.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. Just one item to provide for you this evening. So I just want to let you know that on Thursday, January 9th, there was a regional task force from our area that included City of Walla Walla, Walla Walla Fire District 4, Walla Walla Fire District 5, Benton County Fire District 1, Benton County Fire District 4, and City of Pasco to send a crew down to help assist with the Los Angeles area fires. We sent one of our captains, Captain Brandon Burton, who is the task force team leader, and they're expected to be down there for approximately 18 days to start. So they're limited to how many days they can be there in a row. I think it's 14 is what they're limited to. So then they'll assess on what the state of the fire is at that point, and if there's other teams that would attend down there. But there was a big outcry for regional support, and Washington State in general has sent quite a few support apparatus and personnel down there. So just wanted to let you know that we're monitoring that and helping where we can. Thank you.
Thank you for that. We have Councilman Prowse.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I'll be brief. I just want to talk a little bit about the de-icing protocol and policy. We had Mr. Pikulski come last week to the city council meeting. He is a neighbor, was about a block around the corner, and so I talked with him and a couple other people in my area, and I think we should probably just take a look, not a hard look. I think the hard work's already been done in regards to how we go about de-icing and snow plowing, but I just think we should probably marry up a couple of those areas, and I think perhaps even look into taking into consideration demographics. I think you guys got an email that talked about, slopes and corners and stuff, but in my neighborhood there's a lot of senior citizens and stuff, people touching their golden age years, and they would be really appreciative if some of those neighborhoods, again, if we take into consideration the demographics, that they be prioritized for de-icing. Obviously, when it's if it gets icy and it snows, it's really a moot point. But I think it'd go a long way, especially in my district. When I doorbell, there's a lot of people on fixed incomes that they're not going to be able to pay Heritage or someone to come out and put ice melt down and stuff. So I think we could look into it. Again, I don't think it needs to be that hard of a look, but I think we should try and marry up the snow plowing and the de-icing mapping and how they go about it. So that's just my 2 cents on that, and we can definitely talk about it offline. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you for that. Not seeing anything else. So we move on to number 7, exec session. I'm not seeing anything on that, so hallelujah. We've got number 8, adjournment.